The walking in this area of the Alpes Maritime is truly marvellous. There's the magnificent scenery, the warm welcome, the great weather, the fine cuisine and of course the delicious wine. All of these on their own would be reason enough to visit, but when you get them all together as a package, it turns a nice break into a holiday to remember for years to come. One of the best places to stay is in the charming village of Sospel. This is a favourite place for walkers, mountain bikers and people who just like to bring in the countryside, because it has everything you need. Sospel is right in the centre of the mountains, and from there you can access more than 1,000 kilometres of walking, hiking and biking trails that will suit most levels of walkers, hikers and bikers. The village of Sospel itself has enough restaurants and bars to cater for most tastes and pockets, and there are a dozen or more guest houses, hotels and gîtes to stay at. The walk we're looking at here is a relatively easy 3 to 4 hour walk along part of the Bevera Valley and a small side valley off to the south. Walking is in a mixture of paths and tracks passing through both forested and more open areas. To start, we leave the Villa Amiel, probably the best bed and breakfast in Sospel, and head east, crossing the road into the Parc de Platen. We go past the War Memorial towards the cooperative building that looks like an old warehouse. Going between it and the 1970s transformer building opposite, we follow the small road heading more or less towards the east that, within a few hundred yards, starts to track along the north side of the railway line, heading towards La Source. There are a few interesting houses along this track, an occasional friendly sheep and just the odd car, but you'll soon be leaving most signs of civilization behind you. Continuing along for about half a mile, we then take a road that bears up to the right and is signposted to a kennel complex. 5 minutes later, we arrive at a crossroads area where 3 roads converge, but our path takes us straight on down the unmade track in the front. After passing the large gates, complete with a lot of barking dogs, the track continues on for about half a mile and finishes at some large gates. We leave the track and take the footpath off up to the right and continue along a tree-lined path that for the time being heads due south. As we continue along that path, we notice that it starts to climb slightly, and we leave the Bevera Valley and enter a side valley that takes us onto the Vallon de Suisse. Following the fairly obvious path, we soon pass a big rock or two, and about 20 to 25 minutes from leaving the track, come across an old and fairly picturesque cottage. Looking out through the trees at this point, we get some stunning views back down into the Bevera Valley. Leaving the cottage behind, the path bears slowly right as it drops down towards the riverbed, which, depending on the time of year, can be full of water or empty. There are large boulders in the riverbed, so even if the river is pretty full, it, like many of the small waterways in this region, is easily crossable with care. However, this is a good place to sit and have a picnic, so we do. We join a path on the other side of the river that goes both ways up and down the hill. We go up the hill as, although it adds an extra 40 minutes to this enjoyable walk, the views from the ruin near the top are glorious. Having had our fill of the views, we about turn, following the path back down again, and pass the crossing point in the river. The path dips slightly, and we notice some unusual moss-covered rocks that even in the driest weather seem to stay moist. After about 400 metres, we follow the path that goes up the incline to the right, and at the top bear left onto the track, heading vaguely north. Keeping to the track, we bear left where the farm entrance joins, and a little later on notice the footpath proper goes off down to the left. But we stick to the track, as that follows a higher route and so affords some nice views up the valley towards Sospel. After about 20 minutes, not counting the time we spent taking photos, we found ourselves walking along and above the south side of the railway line, slowly descending back down towards the valley bottom. Following the track as it sloped down and around a right-hand bend, we crossed the railway line once more, then, turning westerly, went along another small roadway taking us back towards La Source, That's a small countrified estate of houses situated just downriver from Sospel. Just before this small housing estate starts, we turned left up the slope and followed the track, still heading vaguely west, this time below and to the north of the railway line. About half an hour after crossing the railway line, we recognised the first part of the track we had walked along a few hours earlier, as we head back towards the cooperative warehouse and Sospel. From here it is just a short walk through the car park and past the memorial to be greeted by the much welcome drink waiting for us when we get back to the Villa Amiel. This hasn't been the hardest walk we've ever done, but it was certainly enjoyable, and we look forward to many more like it in days to come.